of the total end of year inventory in 2008, 2009. Now, certainly I could slice right now by the year. I mean, that's a reasonable thing for us to do at this point. Okay, there's 2008, there's 2009, okay, fine. But that's still not answering the question about the 5% of the total end of year inventory. Again, I don't want to make this myself. Of course, I could make it myself. I know mathematically how to make this happen. You know, I'm just taking any given end of year inventory and divided by the total. I mean, that's the, you know, percent of the grand total. But I can actually get Excel to do this. Now, I can get Excel to do it in this field, but I'm not going to, because I want to show you how to get the same field in there twice, okay? So I already put end of year inventory in here, but I need it in here again to display in a different way, okay? Now, if I go over here to the right, if I check this again, well, it's gonna uncheck it. If I check it, it checks it, you know? It's just toggling back and forth. When I want the same field in there a second time, I drag it down to where the other one was in the values, okay? So I want another column, I just drag it down here, okay? And let's face it, sometimes you might want to, because you might want to put one numeric column in 4 times. And in this one do a sum, and this one do a average, and this one do the maximum, and this one do the minimum. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why you might want a different statistic being displayed for the exact same column. So there's plenty of reasons why you might want this in here multiple times. For us, what I'm asking to do is display it as a percent of the grand total. And if I right click on this second end of year inventory field that I have in here, if I right click on it, try to get it to stay there. One of my choices is show values as, okay? There's a lot of stuff on here we're not gonna do, but the one that we are gonna use is this one right here, the percent of grand total. The percent of grand total, that's exactly what I wanted to see here. And there it is. It was easier, you know, than me doing it myself. I mean, what did they do? Well, they took that number and divided it by this one, and it's 23.88%. Took this number and divided it by that, and it's 4. You know, that's all it did. I mean, it just did the math for me quickly, created the column for me very quickly. Okay. And I'm going to do something. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do a quick well, you could, but I'm going to do a quick conditional format. Does it say greater than? Yeah, more than. So I want to make sure I say greater than 5%. I'll just leave the default red, is okay with me. So there you go. Those are the industries that, right there, those are the 7 industries in the year 2008 that accounted for more than 5% of the total end of year inventories. In 2009, paper manufacturing fell out, okay? And it's just these 6. Because it said more than 5%. Yeah.
How did you show the percentage?
I right click on the field and one of the choices says show values as. And there's a whole bunch of other options we're not going to do, but the percent of grand total is one that you need to be able to do. You need to be familiar with the percent of grand total. Again, it's not that we are unable to create these columns mathematically ourselves, but we don't want to do that, because then it's not a part of the pivot table in the way that this is, where I can make all kinds of other changes to it. And that answers that question. So percent of grand total. Now, again, did I have to leave this column in, or could I just put the column in one time, turned it into percent of grand total? Of course I could have. I could have. But I chose to have it in there so that I have more information. I have the actual dollar value, and I also have the percent. This is the kind of thing that if we made a pie chart out of this, the chemical manufacturing would be almost, you know, a quarter of the pie chart, and then the other things would be smaller, and some of them really small. Are you good with showing values as a percent? So now we're moving to the last slide, tasks, and these are the ones, okay, these are the ones that are, you really need to be paid, wouldn't need paid attention to that one too, but these are the ones that are moving into more difficult things. For instance, the very first one, okay, is back on the Boeing data. I'm gonna move back over here to the Boeing data. I'm actually going to the one that says filters. Don't want to be using, so back to the Boeing data. Here's the question. What's the total number of planes that were sold that fit into the following categories? And these are the categories. 787-9s that were sold to the USA, or they were 787-8s that were sold to China, or they were planes that were sold to Air Canada that had GE engines after the year 2005. Okay. So I'm going to filter, because I'm just trying to get a little count on this. So I'm going to filter, and I'm going to insert, not a pivot table, but just a regular Excel table. So I'm going to insert that. It picks up on the whole thing. Yes, I have header rows. I click OK. I turn off banded rows. I turn on the total row. Okay. I like to do that. Okay, but essentially, I've just turned this into a table, right? We've done this now several times. But if I started trying to answer these questions, and I went in and said, 787-9 sold in the USA, okay, model. 787-9s. Sold in the USA. Okay, so there's my first set. There's my first set. 787-9 sold in the USA. Now, the other group of things I want in here are 787-8s sold to China. Okay, so now I go in and I do, let's just do China. Let's add China.
So what you do with the models,
What was that?
the models that the model went to design?
Hold on a second. When I went to model, you're talking about when I went to model?
Yeah.
Okay, I turned off all the other selections and I turned on 787-9s. Okay, and then I went to country and I turned on USA. So I have accomplished the first set of data that's on the PowerPoint. The USA orders that were 787-9s. Now let's say I want to put the 787-8 China ones in. Okay, so I would go to model. I'll do both. I think I already took that one out. 787-8s. I've already got a problem. And China. Okay. So here's what just happened. I wanted 787-9s from USA, 787-8s from China. I have China ones that are 787-9s. I have USA ones that are 787-8s. Okay. So this isn't working to do it this way. I can't do these two completely distinct groups by using just the real simple filtering mechanism. Okay, I can't do that. So I'm going to clear all of these filters. Go up to data, clear all the filters. Okay. And I have to do something different. I am going to need an extra row up here. So if you go up above your table and just, on the home ribbon, just insert a new row. Just give me a row in there because I am going to have to set up the ability to do an advanced filter. And the way that I'm going to do this advanced filter is going to look a lot like the way you did access queries. Let me show you something real quick. To set up this advanced filtering area, for one, I'm going to copy all these headings. I'm not in a million years going to think that I'm going to type these headings in there, because remember that whole thing where you have the, you have space, you don't have a space, it doesn't matter, it doesn't, I'm not even going there. I'm not even that confident in my typing ability. So I'm going to copy this, Control-C, I'm going to paste it, Control-V. I'm not, like I said, I'm not even taking any chances there. I am definitely copying those headings. All right. So let me just remind you of something real quick of what you had. When you were when you were either in minus 3300 or wherever you took that, you did do access. Everybody was supposed to do access. You did access. In access, you queried, right? When you query in access, you're filtering, okay? Your query is saying, these are my criteria, only show me the things that match this criteria. Well, that's what we do when we filter. These are my criteria, only show me the records that match this criteria. Filtering, querying, that's the same thing, okay? That's the same. When you did that, if you did more, I know you did here, and I assume you did this other places too, but when you queried, you likely used a little grid called the QBE grid, which is a query by example grid. And when you did things in that QBE grid, what you did was, if you had things you wanted to end up in the output set, in the first row, you put in this and this. And if you put them in the row, then it meant the records don't show up in the output set unless you match both of those things, okay? If you wanted then a different set of things to end up in the output, you moved, because you say, when you moved to another row, you were saying or. When you put things on the same row, you were saying and. When you then moved to a next row, you were saying or this. And here's how that worked. I'll use our example. On one row, you put USA 787-9s. For a record to end up in the output set, it would have to match both of those things. That's it. Unless, of course, you put another row and you said, or China 787-8s. It could match everything on that row and end up in the output set. Okay? Or the next row, which is going to be Air Canada GE after 2005. So anytime you're putting things in, if you put it in, this is just like the QBE grid in Access. If you put it in all in the same row, you're saying it has to match this and this and this and this. Or it has to match this and this and this and this. Or it has to match this and this and this and this. Okay, so that's how the grids work. The ands are in the same row, the orders staggered rows. So for us, okay, and I'm just gonna tell you on this, type things carefully. We looked at this and we know that it says U period, S period, A period. I'm not gonna put a space in, you know, I'm gonna be real careful. Just be real careful if you're typing it yourself. The other thing would just be scan down, find it, copy it if you want, okay? And then my model on this one is 787-9. Again, I'm trying to type as carefully as I possibly can. That's one of the criteria sets on the PowerPoint. USA 787-9s. On the PowerPoint it says or, and on the next one, China 787-8s. I'm not putting any extra spaces by accident at the end. I mean, I'm seriously being careful with this. Or, again, one way to be even more careful, like when I want Air Canada, I would be inclined to, if it wasn't too terribly far down, go down here and copy it and paste it instead. That's one way to be really careful, is make sure that, you know, because the typing thing, yeah, you know, okay, Air Canada, GE engines, after 2005, if I put in greater than 2005, that's not going to work. Okay. So here's the thing. All dates, for computer purposes, dates have numeric values associated with them. We started numbering at 1900. 1900, January 1st, 1900 is 1. Okay, next one's 2. Okay. We number days that way, so the dates have numeric values to go with them. Okay. And this would think you were talking about date 2005, which would be, you know, somewhere in the early 1900s. Okay, I don't know exactly what it would be. So that's not what we're going to do. And when you put a date in, you have to be careful to make that date match the format that you have dates down here. So greater than 2005 would be greater than 12/31/2005. Or you could say greater than or equal to January 1st, 2006. I mean, either one of those is okay. Okay, but it's got to match the style and format of what you have in the data. Just put a number there is not going to do it. Okay, now I think I've been really careful. I hope I've been really careful. We will find out in just a moment. If I move my active cell back into this table, because I have literally just put the things in here that are right here. I mean, just the three things that are right there. Okay, I move back down to the main table. Go to the data ribbon. It is over here in the sort and filter, it's an advanced filter. It's an advanced filter. If you were in the data, when you click this, it's the list range, your original list range will show up, and that's all good. That's what I want. But the next range down where it says your criteria range, that's this that we just set up, including the header row. Don't forget the header row, because the header row is what matches, so you know what you're matching. Okay. So that whole area, for me, the way I put it in, you probably did too, is A1 to G4. That's your criteria range. It's the range we just set up in order to make this happen, in order to get the output set that we wanted to get. I'm gonna let it filter in place. I'm not gonna set anything else. I just want the main range, and then I want my criteria range that I just set up, and click OK. And any output that you see here that says Air Canada is going to be a GE engine, and it's going to be after the year 2005. Anytime you see a USA order, it's going to be a 787-9, those and these. When you see a China order, it's going to be a 787-8. Okay, they're matching those things that we put up here. You have to be able to do this. This is an advanced filter is a quiz question. You have to be able to set it up, put them in properly. They'll be specified to you very clearly, just like it is here on the PowerPoint. These things, or these things, or these things can be set very, very clearly. Here's what can happen though. I typed Air Canada, and I spelled it wrong, or I put a space at the end of it. Okay. And then I go back down here, and I'm thinking all is good. And I go into my filtering, and actually the second time you go into it, all the ranges are set up just fine. You're able to go in and change things if you saw something wasn't working. When I click OK, I just lost, and maybe I just think, oh, well, there must not have been an Air Canada GE after the year 2005. And this is a huge data set, so we don't really know, okay? But if your data set's of a size that you can scan through it and you know there should have been something here, here's your choice. The thing you know you're missing right now are the things that match this row right here. Okay? So you just have to go in here and try to figure out what happened. In my case, I have an extra space here. I back that out, run this again, we're gonna be fine. If you can't find it, but you know it's something to do with this row, it's the USA orders, or it's the Air Canada order, whatever it is, your simplest thing the day of the quiz is just to delete those values and put them in again. Because sometimes you just can't see it. You just can't see what's there. I think we even run into a problem, and I'm gonna try it real quick just to see. Like if I had put spaces in there, I don't know how they got in there. I didn't mean for them to get in there, but they just did, okay? And I do a filtering now, I lose the Air Canada stuff again. There is nothing wrong with that cell. There's nothing wrong with that cell. There's nothing wrong with that cell. You know what happened? I have spaces in here. And so there's nothing that also matches those spaces. And so I'm just saying, if your problem is, and you can tell, what row it was that was the problem, then your simplest thing might be, okay, press delete, type them again. I mean, it's sometimes easier than finding that. You know how when you proofread something like 10 times, and then you print it and hand it in, and then you look back and go, how did I miss that? I read over that like 5 times, anyway. That just happens. That just happens. And so that is your best solution to that problem, in my opinion. If you can't just really quickly figure out,
So like the column that we made on top, does it have to be on top, or can it go into the right of of the data set?
It could be somewhere else, but you really just wanna capture all of the things. And I think that on the quiz, I tell you, I think I have enough space for you right above the data, so that it's in a consistent location when the graders are grading. Okay, but for practical purposes, can you put it somewhere else? Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's the only advanced filtering example that we have for class purposes, but you also have one on the practice problems that you can try and compare to the answers there. And next, the next set of stuff goes with this company sales data. That's how they say it, that's set B. It doesn't have nearly enough words in this description. I'm sorry about that. We're gonna be doing a pivot table on set B, so I'm moving back over to where it says pivot table B. I should have more words in here, because it should tell you in a pivot table to do this next thing. But basically, the instructions on here just say, create a column that calculates the number of units as a percent of a benchmark being 10,000 units for every customer. Okay. So it's wanting you to do a calculation. That's one of the things we have to learn that we can do, okay? And I'm going to make a pivot table, because that column that I calculate is going to be in my pivot table. That should have been on the PowerPoint. So I'm going to, in this granola data, okay, I'm going to insert a pivot table. Okay, so I've got a pivot table. I'm ready for this pivot table. And what I want is going to be eventually a column that's going to calculate a percent of a benchmark for these people for the number of, units that they purchased. So first thing, I'm going to put customer in there. Remember, it's a unique listing of each customer. I'm going to go ahead and put the units in right now, because it's kind of simple enough to do. You know what, I'm even going to sort them, because I always think when I'm answering questions later, it's going to be easier to do that. So I've got a very, very simple pivot table right now that has my customer, my number of units. I sorted them so that the highest ones are at the top. Okay. But here's what this is asking. For me to create a column that's going to calculate the number of units as a percent of the benchmark. Okay. I'm actually going to make another column to do that. Not a second column, I'm going to do what I said. I'm going to make a new column that will do that. Not by something that I can do when I right click on this. Okay, that's not how I'm going to do it. When I am in this pivot table, and I have all my two different menus up there for my pivot table tools, on the Analyze ribbon, okay, on my Analyze ribbon, over here, and somewhere, this doesn't always look exactly like this, so you may need to kind of search around for yours a little bit, but you're looking for a thing that says Fields, Items, and Sets. Okay, so look for Fields, Items, and Sets. And when you click on that, one of your choices is a calculated field. You actually have the ability to add calculated fields into your pivot table. In other words, you might have thought, and if you've only used pivot tables a little bit, and certainly with all that we've done in here, that the only fields you could put in there were just these fields. You could just put these fields in, you could display them in different ways, count averages, percent of grand totals, whatever. But no, you actually can put in calculated fields where you could make a calculation that's all, constants, but that wouldn't make any sense. That'd just be a number. But anyway, typically what you're going to do is take one of your already existing numeric fields, add, subtract, multiply, divide it by some constant, or take two of your numeric fields and add them to each other, or subtract them, or multiply them, or divide them, or something. So that's what we're about to do. We're going to make a calculated field. And I think it's kind of reasonable to think we want a name on it, unless we just want it to refer to as field 1. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to give it a name. That is a percent of benchmark. And I'm going to try to type it right. Okay. So percent of a benchmark. And here's how my formula works. It's their number of units. So I'm choosing units down here. Okay, so I'll go down here and I pick units. And I insert that field into the formula. How many units did they buy as a percent of our 10,000 benchmark, well, what you do is you take their units and you divide it by 10,000. Take their units and divide by 10,000. That'll give you, eventually, once we format it correctly,
Why do you divide by 10,000?
it's on the PowerPoint that our benchmark is 10,000. Yeah, so on here it says, basically, create a column that calculates the number of units as a percent of the benchmark of 10,000. Yeah. Okay, so once that's in there, so I gave it a name, units divided by 10,000. I add that as one of my fields, and I click OK. It's actually not formatted as a percent yet. Okay, so I'm going to right click and format this as a percent. I don't need any decimal places, but all right, that might look a little odd. These huge percents up here, but let's see what we just did. So let me find somebody who's about at 10,000 units. When one of our customers, over the time period that we have there, has ordered about 10,000 units, then they hit our benchmark at about 100%, okay? When a customer has maybe ordered 20,000 units, they've exceeded our benchmark, but they've, at 200%, they're at 200% of our benchmark. Some of our low ordering people down here, have only hit at 50% of our benchmark. So, these were easy numbers, so we could look at that really easily. But that, I'm not sure what all information that we're gaining from this, but in our lower percent people, maybe we want to send some more salespeople to them and try to get them to buy more. We want to send them thank you cards, anyway. We want to, what are we doing with this information? I don't know, except for we created that field, okay? That took an existing numeric field called units and divided it by 10,000. So we're going to repeat this on another data set. We're going to go back over to the manufacturing data set. The original manufacturing data set, if I go to pivot table C, I see the unaltered data set. Okay. All right. I'm going to create a pivot table and make some calculated fields here. So let's start by making a pivot table. So while I'm in this big set of data, I'm going to insert the manufacturing data, a pivot table. Click OK. All right. So here are some of the questions I'm going to try to answer. Which industry had the highest production worker pay per production worker hour in 2008? I think an obvious thing is we want to get the industry in there. But when we look over here, wait, I need to scroll down just a little bit. Look at our list of fields. Wrong one. Look at our list of fields. You notice production worker hours, you notice production worker wages, but you don't see production worker pay per hour or wages per hour. Okay? But it's very obvious you can get that. If you know the wages and you know the hours, you can get the hourly wage. Okay, that's easy enough to do. So sometimes you're not using constants, sometimes you're just using numeric fields that already exist in your table. I've got hours, I've got wages, I can calculate wages per hour, okay? So I'm gonna go in to my fields, items, sets again, up there on the Analyze ribbon, go back to my fields, items, and sets, choose calculated field, and it's production workers, so I'm gonna abbreviate a little bit, production workers pay per hour. I mean, essentially, you can use whatever words you want there. That's going to be the column heading. Okay, that's just going to be the heading. Production workers pay per hour. Yes?
If you make a mistake, is there any way to edit those?
Yes. That was going to be the last thing that we did.
Okay.
But did you already make one? You want to go back into it?
Yeah.
It
So I put-
appears when you go back into the fields, we're going to do it, but if you go back into where you make a calculated field and you click on the little drop down, you can see any that you've already made and you can choose it and then change it. Yeah, which we are going to do before we leave all of this. So, we're going to make a mistake on purpose at the end. So production worker wages per hour, I would, for my formula, I get the wages in there, production worker wages. Yeah, I like it, right, get rid of the zero that preceded it. Production worker wages divided by production worker hours. Okay, I mean, I had to insert those, but if you look up on the formula bar line, you've got, let's get to the edge of it, production worker wages divided by production worker hours. Okay. Two numeric fields that did exist in my table are going to help me calculate a different field, okay, a different thing. So I'm gonna add this as one of my new calculated fields. I'm gonna click OK, and there it is. I think this would look better if it had some decimal places. I'm not, gonna lose sleep over it if you don't do it right this second, but I think it would look better if I had some decimal places. But to answer the question, which industry, well, I've got more I have to do here. Which industry had the highest, let's sort. Which industry had the highest production worker pay per hour, the industry, production worker pay per hour in 2008? Oh, well, let's slice by year. And make it just 2008. Okay, there you go. The industries, pay per hour, calculated from two existing fields. Which one's the highest in 2008? The petroleum and coal products manufacturing. Okay. All right, next one. Which industry had the largest building rentals as a percent of end of year inventory? We have a column that's building rentals. We have a column that's end of year inventory. Okay, so we're gonna make a calculated field from those. It actually doesn't say year, so I'm gonna turn that filter off. So when I go to the Analyze ribbon in the pivot table tools, go back into the fields, items, and sets so I can make another calculated field. Abbreviate as you feel fit to do, I don't care. Building rentals as percent of end of year inventory. There, that's how I abbreviated it. You can do whatever you want. But the question asks, building rentals as a percent of end of year inventory. If something's a percent of something else, you're just dividing it. Building rentals divided by end of year inventory. So my formula, I gotta go down a little ways. Building rentals is kind of far down, but you'll eventually find it. Building rentals divided by, then you have to go back up a little bit to find end of year inventory. Here it is. Okay. It may take you a minute, but you'll find them both. Building rentals, divide that by total end of year EOY inventories. Once you find both of those, put them in your formula.